Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Nags Head's mid-month Board of Commissioners meeting. It's Wednesday, June 15th, and we're going to call the meeting to order. Our first item of business is the adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously. Our next item is audience response. And this is the time that we set aside for the public to come and speak to the board. Is there anybody that wishes? We do ask you to give your name and your address, if you would. Is there anybody that cares to speak to the board this evening? Sir? If you'll come to the podium. Yes, sir.
Hello, good evening. My name's James Selkman, and I live at 7808 South North Shore Road in Nags Head, which is over on Pond Island. And not sure quite proper protocol, but I just wanted to raise some concerns or opposition to apparently a present proposal. I believe it's pertaining to a water tap on an adjacent lot to me. I believe the lot is a lot 33, and wanted to voice my opposition to that, as well as any other improvements or development on that lot, being that I believe it was at one time termed as an unbuildable lot, and I believe there's some gray area in that at this time. I sent an email copy to the town approximately 3 weeks ago, and I spoke to Mr. Clark at the water department concerning this tap fee, and that particular street and development and water tap, which we were assessed for, I guess it was approximately 15 years ago, has some history to it pertaining to the fees, how we were assessed, why we were assessed. Believe the town might have been issued a CAMA violation at that time for improper notice to me in particular. So I just wanted to be heard, voice my opposition at this time, ask for proper notification. I recently opposed a peer proposal on that lot via CAMA, and not knowing where it stands at this time. So I just wanted to go on record with that and ask for proper notification.
Okay, now when you talk about proper notice, there's the notice that the property owner sends out that they plan to build something there. Is that the type of notice you're speaking?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the CAMA protocol as far as certified mail. When they're when any application goes through them, which I've responded to this time. My history in the past is that I did not receive certified mail pertaining to the town's placing rock on that lot. In fact, that particular certified mail, Lynn Mathis, I'm sure it's on record that there's a forgery pertaining to that at that time of my signature. And I don't know what happened with the investigation of that, but I got assessed and paid for some rocks on that property that I did not agree to be put there, and I had to pay for it, as well as other people on the road, I think everyone living on the road at that time got equally assessed.
When was this, sir?
I know it's probably before many people hear their time, but I believe it's. I've got it in my files on record, and I could, get that together. But I think it's probably approximately 15 years ago. I've lived there for 22 years, so again, proper protocol as far as notice. I know that some items are typically items with the town are also advertised in the newspaper, correct?
It depends on what it is. There's several legal notices that we're required to put out there.
Okay.
I think the current situation with this lot, and I'll ask somebody to correct me if I'm wrong, is there's another lot that it's associated with, and somebody has asked for those to be, we're looking into the possibility of those being combined, put together, and then I think that was the discussion on
Right.
whether a water tap fee would be waived for just having a dock on that lot.
Right.
And I'm not sure that that would require any type of illegal notice on there.
Well, again, but that property is unlike other properties of like kind on Pond Island, whereas people own waterfront directly across from their lot or adjacent to it. That lot is catty-corner, or 2 lots down from this lot, and combining that, you know, I've raised issue as far as police issues, fire issues, public easement access, the survey of that lot, the wetlands of that lot. I've put all those concerns in an email, and just would like to, I just want to stay up with any proposals or developments that may go on that lot, because after my my experience 15 years ago, which was not good, and I got charged for it, I just want to go on record to stay up with it at this time, respectfully.
Yes, sir.
But
and we'll certainly be glad to offer any information that we've got. I think that is something that is pending, though. Is that
correct?
Correct, Cliff. And we, if y'all don't mind, if you'll take a minute and just explain what is
actually,
pending.
If it's okay, I'll ask Elizabeth Tigg to come up and address it. She has had a conversation recently with Miss Delviller, and I think she can bring you up to speed on that.
okay, can I sit down?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much for coming.
In this instance, we were contacted about looking at that particular lot for the potential use of a dock. And as you may recall, I believe the Delvillers came to you to see if they could get the tap fee waived. There were several qualifications that they needed to meet in order to get that exemption. They do not meet those qualifications, so they do not qualify in order to get a waiver on their tap fee. Additionally, we won't be able to do any sort of building permit until they get everything through CAMA. The notification that he spoke about is a CAMA process. So they're still, as I understand it, in that CAMA process where the applicant is required to notify the adjacent property owners, bring documentation of that to CAMA, and CAMA will go forward with a building permit based on the specifics of that site and consider that permit application at that time. So we're just waiting for them to see what happens with CAMA. I did touch base with John Cece of CAMA, and that application is not completed as of yet. So you may have gotten notice, but it hasn't been turned back over to CAMA yet. So we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Is there anybody else that wishes to come and speak before public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Linda Sharp, and I live at 3817 South Virginia Dare Trail, across from the Jockey's Ridge, right down from Austin Seafood. And I'm here to address you tonight on the harassment that I am receiving from your police department about my dogs. They constantly are harassing me. I talked to your mayor, Bob Oakes, last fall about it because he walks by my house with his dog not on a leash. And I walk by his house from time to time, and his dog is not on the leash when it's out on the beach, just acting like a dog, no problems. And many, many other people are walking their dogs, or their dogs are roaming around. But the police department for Nags Head seems to have an issue with me and me only. On June 5th, which was Sunday a week ago, my female Cocker Spaniel was giving birth to a litter of puppies. It was a very much anticipated event. Dayton Dixon was with me at my house. When I had woken up that morning, my dog was in labor and I had my pajamas on, trying to help her. After the 5th puppy was born, up the steps to my house, where the gate is closed on the porch, comes policeman Doug Luden and Sergeant Chris Brady, and they are there to arrest me. They tell me that they have obtained a warrant for my arrest from a judge. They won't show me the warrant, and all they'll say is it is a leash law violation. So they tell me that I have to stand up, put my hands behind my back so that I can be handcuffed. I am not allowed to put on any bathrobe or any clothes or anything, okay? They do consent that I can put on a pair of shoes so that I can be walked out to the 2 police cars that are waiting in my driveway. This is an abuse of power. This should not happen in any town. A leash law violation is not a state violation. It is a town of Nags Head where y'all can give citations. At that time, when I got my shoes on and I was handcuffed, Mr. Luden tells me that I can make one phone call. And I called Linda McCowan, who is an attorney, and she was shocked that they were going to take me to the detention center to be locked up. She thought a town violation I would be taken to the police department in Nags Head, but that was not what happened. They took me handcuffed in a police car to the detention center where I had to deal with a magistrate and be put in a holding cell, and the magistrate at that time on the 5th was, let's see, it was excuse me. It wasn't Miss Dupree, it was another magistrate who told me that he had never seen such an abuse of power by police department officers to bring me in for a leash law when I wasn't even doing anything. My dog was giving birth to puppies on my porch. But the magistrate let me go. Linda McCowan took me home. On the following Monday, I called your town manager and addressed this issue with him. And he told me that he would look into the matter and call me back. He didn't call me back. Didn't hear anything else. I thought it was over. I obey the law. I take my dogs to Kill Devil Hills and to Kitty Hawk to walk them, okay? Not to Nags Head, except for Saturday night, and I took them to walk on leashes with a friend of mine so I would have a witness. So on Sunday, this past Sunday, the 12th, I was having dinner, and I had a friend over who has cancer. Y'all might know him, Dave Holton, Dr. Holton's brother. He's going under chemotherapy. And we were having dinner and reading the Wall Street Journal and watching the news. And 2 policemen show up at my house again. These are 2 different policemen, and that I don't know and I've never seen before. And they told me that they were here to once again arrest me for a leash law violation. They handcuffed me. I'm not allowed to put on any other clothes. I've got on like a beach dress, and I am again taken to the detention center. Not until we get into Manio do they call and ask for a magistrate to be present. So it's delayed. We have to wait for the magistrate. I have to be fingerprinted again. I have to be put in another holding cell. I have to have pictures taken of me, and it's extremely distressful. At this time, they told me that my dog, my little Cocker Spaniel, who's a year old, had been out on the beach. But it wasn't my dog. It was the dog of the tourists that were staying 2 houses north of me, and who have a St. Charles Spaniel that is brown and white, whereas I have a Cocker Spaniel that is brown and white. So the police officers were wrong. They didn't apologize. And again, it took up about 4 hours of my day. All this is complete and total harassment by your police force. And I'll tell you why it's going on. Your chief of police, his grandmother owned Greg's Lumber, or part of Greg's Lumber, and my house in Kitty Hawk that was supplied lumber from Greg's Lumber is collapsing. I have a perfectly clean criminal record, but Mr. Brinkley wants me to have a criminal record, so in federal court it will damage my credibility, and that is unethical behavior, and it is from the top down in the town of Nags Head. I am a peaceful citizen. I don't try not to bother anybody, and I have walked on all the beaches from Corova to Ocracoke, and I have never had any problem whatsoever. But I'm having a problem in Nags Head, and I want y'all to do something about it. I want you to tell your police officers to cease and desist. Do not come on my property, do not arrest me anymore, and do not have any contact with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Sharp. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak at public comment?
Do you want John to go ahead and give us a little report now, since we don't have committee reports?
That would be great if John would mind. Mr. Ratzenberger, would you mind giving your 50th anniversary committee report? That
This is just a brief one. I mean, we're still engaged out there, but I wanted to take a few minutes to thank. I mean, we had a big day yesterday with a lot of moving parts in it and a lot of things going on. And I wanted to thank the 50th committee, the town staff, local businesses, and the community in general for all of the support, assistance, help, effort, attention, attendance, and anything else that made yesterday a great day. It wasn't us, it was everybody. I think I and a lot of folks were particularly pleased with how our lightkeeper selection meshed with the concept of the 50th birthday. It's a very moving ceremony there and a good start. I want to take a minute to specifically note the efforts, the thought, and the physical work and the rest of it of Susie Walters and John Gillen on the gala and the carnival concept. Without a doubt, that was born from those two folks there, and they did a super job, and anybody that's been there, I think, knows that. And I'm going to briefly leave it. As you may have heard, the carnival was a rousing success, too successful. We got overwhelmed in the parking lot quickly down there. Since then, we have doubled the volunteer force. And I got to thank, again, public safety and all for filling in the gap. They were there as quick as they could. We got things under control, etc. Tonight, we've doubled the volunteer force down there. A lot of effort in scraping people up. When they came in tonight and everybody coming in says, yeah, it's filling up. Yeah, but it's under control. They're packed tighter. They're being controlled. We're not going to have the kind of loss of control issue we had last night down there. There was no damage, no nothing. Other than that, so I think we're good to go. We've got a few nights left to go. But I will tell you, it doesn't take much to look down there and see that the concept of a carnival in summer in the town of Nags Head is kind of a good idea. I mean, there's kids and families and the young kids and everything all over the place. So again, I want to repeat my thanks for yesterday, for the 14th, the committee, the staff here in the town, of course y'all, the businesses that supported us, and the community itself. I think it really showed a good community involvement in the 50th. And I'm tickled pink. So with that, I'll get out of y'all's hair.
Comments on the 50th? You should be tickled pink, John. You should be tickled pink. It's really turned out to be a wonderful event. And thank you, Anna. I know y'all's committee has worked very hard on it. And it's nice when a plan comes together.
And I know that we all enjoyed from yesterday on. It was just 50 years of Nags Head. I don't know how they'll top it for the next 50, but I'm not going to worry about it.
Is there anybody else that does care to speak for public comment this evening? Ms. Sharp, we generally don't answer the questions right at the time of public comment. We will put your comments on the agenda under the mayor's agenda here. It'll be towards the end of the meeting if you would care to remain
I
around.
want to make sure I'm protected. I do not feel safe, okay?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Our next item, any further? Yes, sir.
Do you want me to stay, or I made my point?
I think you made your point. I don't know that we're going to have further discussion on that. If it was something that was in process, so if you'll keep an eye on it, and we'll try and stay in touch with y'all as well.
Appreciate that.
Yes, sir. And I'm sorry about the 15 years ago. I'm not I hope forgery sounds serious, and sorry.
Well, thank you. I just want to make a comment, if I could.
Yes, sir. Please, if you don't mind coming to the podium.
Yeah, just briefly, I just want to, again, I think this carnival is a great thing for the town and kind of spirit of America. While at the same time, I'll speak for myself, but I think I'll speak for the majority of our Christian community that we are opposed to this OBX Pride Fest that is coming to this town. I think that agenda is something that deteriorates our country on a national level and on a local level. So I just wanted to voice that opinion. It's my opinion, but I think it may be of the majority of this area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else on public comment this evening? Seeing none, we're going to close public comment for tonight. And our next item is a consideration of budget adjustment number 13. Ms. Kenny, any comments?
It's basically just adjust accounts so that there's sufficient
Last
funds for the
one.
remaining of the year. Yeah, last one. Clean up.
Move to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Thank you. Next item is adoption of the fiscal year 11-12 budget ordinance. Did anybody have any questions for Ms. Kenny while she's up there? Yes, ma'am.
I have a comment about the budget. Just since our last workshop, I've had some people, while they didn't oppose necessarily the 2-cent increase, they did oppose it to being a full year. They would rather see it start a fiscal year rather than go back retroactive to the beginning of the year. Just passing that comment on to the board. Taxes run from January to December, and they were saying we didn't start our project until middle of the year, so they didn't see why it wouldn't run July to July instead of January to, so I'm passing that on.
Yeah.
And I had emailed Cliff about the question about, that was asked, could we not, was that legal to do,
Don't believe we have a lot of choice in that, do we?
not with the way our payments are set up. And I will say, I was asked to bring it forward, so I did.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Other comments on the budget?
Yeah, I got one.
Yes, sir.
I had a call this evening from the gentleman. He's questioning whether or not it's right to have two tax districts, one getting more sand than the other, and taxing them both the same. If you all remember back in February, we had District 1, District 2, which District 1 was getting less sand than District 2, and they were taxed less. And he feels it should be the same in this job we're doing now, where we have two districts, and they're being taxed the same. One district getting less sand.
Now, the difference though wasn't one district farther back from the ocean on that earlier one that you're speaking of. Was that?
It was both Oceanside. District 1 was Backman Street south of Governor Street. They'd received 1,465,000 cubic yards. District 2 was Governor Street to the town line, and they would receive 2,535,000 yards.
I guess my question was there has not been a different way of doing that where it had different amounts on different districts.
There was
different dollar amounts on different
at one
districts.
time, it may have been when we had the assessment, that the people had to approve that people up north were getting taxed less because they were getting less sand. Is that correct?
Yes. The assessment was based upon,
There's something in the general statutes that says it's got to be equal if you're being taxed. I know that. I mean, that came up at a board meeting a while back. And it came up again when people up north decided they were getting less sand, which they are getting less sand, but they're being taxed the same as the people down south who are getting more sand.
And I think the rationale that we had there was that we're trying to get 10 years worth of sand in front of everybody, and that's more sand in South Nags Head than it is in North Nags Head.
But what we're doing is
But
within the
everybody
law.
gets 10
Is that
years of,
correct?
yes, sir, it is.
Okay.
Minor correction,
Yes, ma'am.
the districts are no longer Governor Street. The district is Grable, not Grable, but
Gulfstream.
Gulfstream. It was moved north from Governor.
Yeah, but this was when it was Blackman. Before
Well,
we
I
moved
think the difference that I recall was on the bond issue, you had two districts, and one was along the ocean, and the one was between the highways, and there were different rates on those two. But the
Do you
ocean
remember
front-
anything coming up where the people up north was getting less sand and they were going to be taxed less than the people down south who was getting more sand?
I know I've heard that suggestion.
So something in the
mainly from
general
people up north.
statutes that said you have to, if for taxation, you have to get equal return.
Right. Yeah, you have to get an equal share of something, and I think the rationale that we had was everybody's getting that 10 years worth of protection.
So we're within the law.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I wanted to speak against the budget that we've got. I think that y'all have a consensus on anyway. And a couple of points on it, and I'll try and be brief. I think the fee that we've set up to push trash cans back is really one of the worst concepts that I've seen. The cost of collection is you're collecting $10,000, and I think we're trying to do it out of a sense of fairness, that you've got a group of people that are getting a service from the town. I think it's more about community and appearance and keeping our multi-use path clear. The fairness issue is the part that just kind of stumps me, because we talk about levying another $10,000 on these folks, but then 15 minutes later we're talking about the $1.8 million in occupancy and sales tax that we collect from the same group. And it just seems like that's a natural use for that type of money. I really haven't heard anybody making the argument that these houses don't pay more than their share into the town. Matter of fact, we've made the opposite argument. So I would urge us to not do that. I think it's more of a political decision than an economic decision. Again, I go back to that cost of collection. There are easy ways to collect money and there are hard ways to collect money. And I think this fee is going to be difficult to collect. And I think that if you want to collect it, you put it in the tax rate. I think the other political decision that we're trying to make is the 2-cent tax increase on everybody. And I feel like we're making that point somewhat to say that everybody's got a stake in beach nourishment. And I agree with that statement. But I think we've got an option to take that money out of fund balance this year and it's coming from the same place, but it's not imposing that initial pain on the taxpayer. And I think there's still a lot of repercussions from our economy right now. It's not a robust economy necessarily down here. There's been a lot of things lost in it. And while there are certain segments that are doing well, not everybody's in that boat. And that 2 cents does make a difference on the west side in particular. So that's my pitch. No 12-cent tax increase, which is what 2 cents is on our 15.75. I also think the water increase can be avoided. We are reacting to a letter from the local government commission. it does not take into account, I don't think, the fact that we transfer every year $525,000 from the water fund into the general fund. That's the rationale for that, is a repayment of overhead costs. I would submit that we would, A, still have a lot of that overhead, even if we farmed out the water collection, and B, our fund balance in water is healthy. The fluctuations in our wholesale water price, I think, are still leveling out. We should see, with an increased consumption of water, a lower capital cost of water. That those capital costs will be spread out over a larger number of gallons of water. We did a 10% 10% water increase last year. I would hope that we would consider avoiding that 5% increase this year and see what another year brings us. Commissioner Cahoon made the point, what do you do the next year after that? And it's a good point. To continue to take money out of the general fund balance is not necessarily a great idea. Our fund balance, however, is at 71% of our expenses. The state requires 8%, I believe.
Recommends 8%.
Yeah, it recommends 8%. We've always carried a bigger fund balance than that, and I think it's prudent to still continue to do that. But I think we can set a lower level than 71%, and I would throw out 55% as being a reasonable amount of fund balance to carry, and have that as our point where we take action to increase it if we need to. But I think it's that's kind of a rainy day fund, and I think it's been raining the past couple of years. We've managed pretty well. We did do a tax increase last year. I'd like to see us avoid a 2-cent tax increase this year and see what the effects are of the overall impact of the 16 cents on the oceanfront, the oceanside district. That, my understanding is that will relate to about a 5-cent increase overall, because it's on about a third of the ad valorem property. So we will be, everything else being equal, we would receive more sales and occupancy tax money in the following year, because of that 5 cent overall. I don't think, number one, I don't think we should make that worse by adding 2 cents to it, because the other towns certainly have to make their decisions, but I think that certainly has a negative impact on them, and we should strive to minimize that. And I don't think we know what that 5 cent will bring us in additional occupancy and sales tax revenue for the year after that. I think it may be significant enough that it does resolve that future issue on paying the debt service that we know that we need to pay. So I will throw that out there, and wait for comments from y'all. Wait for y'all to agree with me. Sir?
Am I to agree with you?
You don't have to.
I think the 2 cents the way to go. Reason being, I think we need to let the people know that we're raising taxes. You go in fund balance and you take out 2 cents, which is $626,000. We could just put that in the budget and slip it by. I think the people should know we are raising taxes for beach nourishment. As I stated at the last budget meeting, I have not supported beach nourishment, and I have got no support from the town except in the historic district supporting my policy of opposing beach nourishment. And I think the time has come for me to support it, and I'll support the 2 cent tax increase. And I said North Carolina requires 8% of your budget in the what fund was that?
Fund balance.
Fund balance.
Fund balance.
Yes, sir.
That's good for some small town over on the mainland, but we're 11 miles long. We live on the coast, and I don't think we can have too much money in fund balance. Fund balance is to get us through a hurricane, a catastrophic hurricane, and the $7 million is not much, and I think we need that in there, and that has been built up through the years by people that looked at that, what can happen to us. We have people coming in after a storm to clean up and they're not gonna do it on credit. And we've got to have the money on hand to pay them. Even FEMA may reimburse us, but it takes a long time for that, and we gotta be prepared. So I'm against taking it out of fund balance.
Other comments? Anybody care to make a motion about the budget?
Well, first, let me say, I'll go either way on that. I don't have an issue like Wayne does and some other people do about the fund balance. I agree, you know, we keep a lot of money in the fund balance. And I also agree that $7 million isn't a whole lot of money, but it's, you know, I think that the economy, the way that it is, has been, I mean, the economic impact as far as is, you know, could be kind of offset by use of the fund balance, and I think, you know, I think an economic hardship is probably the same as a storm. But either way, I support, you know, I think our tax rate is not that high. I never have. I supported beach nourishment from the beginning. I will support it until the end. And as far as the, you know, again, either way, we're going to get the money. We're either going to get the 2-cent tax increase or we're going to get it out of fund balance. I'm just all for, you know, adopting the budget the way that it is. And I would make a motion to do that.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Now, the budget, the way it is,
That way it's presented, I'm sorry.
which, yes, ma'am, please. You got your numbers?
I've got the numbers here.
I
What are the numbers?
made a comment at the last budget workshop, and I'll reiterate it. I'm not opposed in the future to decreasing it, but until we see how the project works, I'm opposed to it. We don't know if it
Renee,
works.
they can't hear you in
Oh,
your
I'm
back.
sorry. If it works, I think it's a great idea to reduce it, but I think we need to evaluate the project over the term of at least the debt service to see how it's gonna work before we go in and start taking away the money. Sorry, I didn't mean to not speak clear enough.
And Mayor, how many budget workshops did we go to this year? It was more than what we went to last year and the year before. And you know, we knock this around every budget workshop about how to pay, whether it be a tax increase, partial tax increase, you know, using fund balance. And you do put up a good argument. It is not a good economic time to raise taxes, but then in the best of times, we didn't raise taxes. It's just never, in an election year, it's not a good time to raise taxes. There's never a good time to raise taxes. And I would agree with your logic about $626,000 out of our fund balance is not even going to bring it down to 55%. If those who follow next year wouldn't do the same thing next year and next year, you never, once you open a keg of worms, it's open. And I will tell you again that we've made a commitment, and we need, I mean, just because we have built the beach out 100 to 150 feet does not mean that we are totally insulated from an Isabel. And Wayne's right, we have to pay cash for disaster. And I don't want to be caught short there. If in the future it you know, the fund balance continues to build and we, for whatever reason, could reduce the taxes by 2 cents before the 5-year period is over, I'm all for it. But I'm a little afraid to reach in there and get that money out this year. I really, I think that we need to see, I think we need a steady go as we have discussed in every budget workshop until you brought this out the last meeting. And as far as the money with the trash rollout carts, Bob, for years I have heard and heard and heard, why don't I get that service? I'm paying for it out of my taxes. And there are a lot of people that live year-round on the ocean front, and they probably don't even use that service. They probably roll theirs in and out of themselves. Unfortunately, most of the rentals are on the ocean side, and it's a use that is dedicated to that side because the owners aren't here to do it themselves, and that's one of the things I hear more about than I do the 2-cent tax increase. Is I'm so glad that you guys are finally doing something about making the people who use this service pay for it. And you spoke about the occupancy tax. You know, there's a lot of people over there that don't rent their houses. So you can't divide this one up and use this one because that would be a logistic nightmare. And I don't think that $10,000 is going to make or break anybody that's getting the service. As far as collecting it, it is not going to be an admin huge expense. I just think that finally we are delegating a payment from where it needs to come to the item that it needs to go to. And as far as the water fund, I totally am in agreement with you. I was not for the raise last year, and I still don't support it this year, but it's a part of the overall budget. I think the water fund is healthy. And if it needs any money, the town owes it money. I'll just pitch that in there again. I've tried to pay that back for 5 years, but I'm not successful. So, but I don't think that a letter from the league that they're going to come down here and chop our right arm off if we don't raise the water bill this year. So I agree with you there. Now, I don't know.
Is that me?
I think that's it.
Sorry.
$50 can go into the fund.
I apologize.
That's okay. You're forgiven. Maybe.
Any other comments on our budget, y'all, and the discussion here?
If you want the numbers on the budget, I got them.
We got them on the screen,
Okay.
actually.
Good.
The water rate can be adjusted at any time if I'm not mistaken.
Is that correct? Could we eliminate that 5% increase at any time?
I thought it was a part of it.
It's not like the tax rate where you set it and it can't be changed until the following year. But once you adopt the budget with that tax rate in there, it's in there until you take it out. So, and it would,
It could be adjusted
So if
with
the
the
board
budget.
wanted to adjust it, say our next meeting, that could be.
it would require a budget adjustment at that time as well. But yeah, it can be adjusted at any time of the year.
So we could do that at a next meeting if you would like, if y'all want to consider that.
I think we need to put it on the agenda for consideration in July.
Okay,
Give everybody a chance to,
we can do that. Further discussion? We have the budget on the overhead here. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed, like sign. Aye. Motion passes 4-1. Our next item of business is consideration of a modification to personnel policy to require employee direct deposit.
10 years ago, on July 1, 2001, the policy was amended to require direct deposit for all new employees. The hope was that over time, eventually we would pick everybody up. That hasn't happened. We still have some employees that are getting checks. With the new software that we're going to, it doesn't allow us, like we currently can, to print some checks and print some ACH advices. What it would require is that we would have to print every single check and ACH as a check and then void all those checks that were ACH entries, which is the cost of 110 checks when you only really needed 10. So we recommended that we actually at this time make the move to make it a mandatory direct deposit for all employees. We have at least 2 banks that offer a free account for employees, so there wouldn't be a cost to them.
Questions for Kim?
Employees can choose to have a direct deposit into their own bank account though, right?
Yes.
Okay, just.
for those employees that don't have an account, there are at least two banks locally that will offer free accounts.
Yes, ma'am?
Kim, have you had any, has Benita told all the employees this, or have you?
Yes.
And do you have any that have a hardship by having a bank account if they don't already have one?
Not that we've heard, no.
So this is mandatory?
Under this policy, it will be yes. It also gives us, by doing checks and ACHs, it creates a lot of inflexibility around, for example, holiday times when you want to pay people on the exact same day. And to do ACHs, you have to have the files with the bank 2 days before. To do checks, it has to be a day that the town is open. And often we're processing payroll then in 1 day instead of having adequate time to process this. So this would also eliminate that.
So it's an efficiency measure.
And a
to make
cost.
it easier to pay people.
And there's no lost checks. It gets to the employee even when they're on vacation or out sick. There's a lot of advantages to it. We'll also, if any employee does have a hardship, most banks offer some kind of debit card that you can actually put preload the debit card with the amount of the pay, so that if they really didn't want to have a true bank account that they had to monitor, they could get a card.
Other questions?
Move to adopt as presented.
A motion on the floor, and we have a second. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Update on the beach nourishment project. Mr. Ogburn.
After about a week delay, the Liberty Island was down. It had to go back to Norfolk for refueling. It had some maintenance work done to it. It resumed dredging yesterday at about 11 o'clock a.m. It's got about 3 loads in yesterday, and it's still maintained between 7 and 9 loads a day. As I think you all know now, we learned that the Dodge and the Padre Island, the other 2 hopper dredges that were coming from Mississippi, are now going to stay in that area, and the Liberty Island will stay on longer. The Liberty Island can do the equivalent of those 2 hopper dredges itself. It sails faster, it can carry more sand. So Liberty Island will stay on longer to complete that work. Liberty Island now is just north of Jeanette's Pier, should be at Jeanette's Pier by the weekend. It will pump just as much as it can underneath. The profile will be exactly like it would be underneath the pier. If the pier wasn't there, the profile will be the same. And it'll pick the Liberty Island will pick up on the south side and then continue on. The Texas has been delayed. The Texas is the cutterhead dredge that will be here hopefully this weekend, but it may not be actually dredging until Monday or Tuesday. Thankfully, the project getting started a little bit earlier than we had anticipated, and the efficiency of the Liberty Island to date has kept the project on pace, on time to this point. But with the mechanical delays, the weather's been very cooperative. There have been no takings, turtle takings. There have been 3 turtles that have been spotted in the water, but there's been no takings. This project is going along, even with these mechanical delays, it's going along very well. The Liberty Island, as I said, it's carrying about 30 to 35,000 cubic yards a day. The Texas can pump between 40 to 50,000 cubic yards a day. So once the Texas gets here, I think we're going to see quite a lot of activity going on. We've received and will probably have the first payment authorized. We haven't paid any work on this, any money on this so far, but the first payment should probably be made tomorrow. They've pumped close to 500,000 cubic yards, but this first draw will be for about 177,000. Construction meetings are scheduled again Thursday mornings at 9 a.m. At the police training room. We met today with some members of the CAMA staff to go over. We got the unofficial, I guess, until they do a couple more modifications to it, a few more things to add to the static line. We now have the static line drawn on a map. We've got that in our office. We met with Cam about the sandbags and kind of talked about some of the different particulars, and there's still, the statement is that all the bags must be removed, but it's a matter of when they have to be removed. The bags that are going to at all affect our project are the ones that are going after immediately, and as you would expect, some have complied, some have come out, some have not, and some have not. They've not had any response at all, so they don't know whether or not they will or they won't. But I believe that the CAMA staff is staying on top of this as much as they possibly can and putting a lot of attention to this issue. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but it's all good news.
The static line, I'm sorry, refresh my memory as
It's the
to-
first line of stable vegetation in which all the setbacks are measured from. And that line is drawn now, and that's where that line is where they measure the setbacks depending on the structure, the size, and the erosion rates of where the structures are located.
And have we taken the position that east of that line is public trust area, correct?
Yes, that is one of the most obvious indicators, I think. Once surveyed and once established on a survey, that becomes, I think, the most, other than your interpretation and my interpretation of the first line of stable vegetation, it's clearly delineated, and the other indicators are probably more subjective. That static line is much less subjective, and that's an indicator of the public trust. Yes, everything seaward of that line.
And has the mean high water line been mapped as well?
Yes, that has been, as part of one of the conditions of our permit, that mean high water had to be surveyed and platted, and that's been done, and it's also on that same map. The kinks that we're talking about is trying to make that map, which is a wonderful planning document for us to have, is actually having reference points on this map that show the different stations so that people can easily identify taking the beach nourishment sections and then overlaying it on the map.
Observation about static line is that at the end of our 5-year repayment period, if the project works as planned, the town can petition for that static line to be moved eastward.
How far? Or just based
They
on
would-
how?
That would be based on the new measurements, but Emerald Isle took advantage of it, as they have a stable project and they ended up having, but there are some restrictions that go on it, such as size of structure and that type of thing that can go. But Emerald Isle ended up with about 108 buildable lots that had previously been unbuilt.
And that's because the stable natural vegetation grows in and actually creeps eastward, is that correct?
But their project has been demonstrated to be a stable project. Their erosion rate was not dramatic. It was like the minimum of 2 feet per year. So, and Emerald Isle has a demonstrated plan of re-nourishment. So they met all the criteria. So there is possibility down the line based on how we fund it and how stable it is, seeing that setback line change.
Cliff, I'd like to go back to the sandbags.
Okay.
At one point, we understood from you, I think, that sandbags would be taken on an individual basis, case by
Correct.
case. Is this not?
No, that's still the case, and I
That's still the
think
case.
that while they all have to be removed, the case by case determines when they have to be removed. So I'll put it this way: the bags that are the most seaward, the bags that are the furthest east, those are the ones that will be tackled first. The ones that affect our project, the ones that that don't give us the ability to nourish as far landward as we can, those are the ones that will be tackled first. The ones that are covered and don't affect the project, they will eventually have to be removed, but as to when, I don't know.
Okay, well, let's take, for example, Comfort Inn, because that will be nourished next, as I understand
Very
it.
soon, in the next couple of weeks.
So I'm to assume from what you're saying this evening that all the bags at the Comfort Inn must be removed prior to that part of the beach in front of the Comfort Inn being nourished.
While they will have to be removed, whether or not the Comfort Inn removes those bags before nourishment, probably, I I'd be speculating whether or not they would. If they don't, the project continues, but it may not continue as landward if they weren't there. We cannot place any sand such that that sand will cover any of those bags. So while we'll continue and we'll nourish up to and around Comfort Inn, in front of Comfort Inn, if those bags are still there, it kind of hamstrings our ability to nourish as far landward as we possibly can.
So what you're saying that perhaps the properties north of the Comfort Inn may be penalized for the existing sandbags at the Comfort Inn?
It's possible. Sandbags that aren't removed and keeps sand further eastward, that
It messes up the profile. I mean,
Yes.
we don't get to put as much sand in front of that property, and we can't put it farther out in the ocean because we're restricted on the footprint that we've got. So we can't just add the sand on the east end of it. It really does, it messes it up. Would the board consider telling these folks that we're gonna do them last? Giving them a more of a chance to remove their sandbags?
You can't keep, I don't think you can keep hopping around with, we're gonna do it here, we've changed due to, I think, the earlier beginning and now the lack of the other two coming. We've changed our schedule a number of times to where it is very difficult for anyone to anticipate what they're gonna have when they arrive, if anything, or too much. I'm just thinking that, first of all, I don't want tons of emails tomorrow from people saying, why doesn't the town make them take out the sandbags? This is the issue I'm trying to get to now. Who has the authority, and speak clearly, Cliff, to make anyone who has exposed sandbags remove them?
CAMA. The town cannot enforce, and town's not the regulatory agent in requiring these bags to remove.
And nor is it the enforcement agency. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct.
Okay.
It's CAMA.
So, CAMA, is that Mr. CC and Ms. Mathis? Is it higher up? Who is the enforcement and the regulatory that is responsible for getting these sandbags removed? And if they're not removed, or?
They've got, from the date the letters were issued, they had 30 days to comply, and on that 31st day, they would be issued notices of violation. But of course, then it just goes into whether or not they comply, whether or not they continue to get the notices of violation. It's conceivable that we'll be having this discussion well after nourishment is gone. I mean, completed, the project's gone, Great Lakes is gone, and it's
Our best leverage is right now in terms of if we actually want those sandbags gone, this is the best time we've got to encourage people to get them out.
How are you gonna encourage people to get them out?
Tell them we're not gonna put sand in front of their place if they've still got sandbags.
What are you gonna do, stop it for 100 yards and then pick it up beyond their property?
Yep, or do them last.
You better talk to the dredging company before you decide that.
I'm seeing what the board
I don't think.
has any pleasure of doing.
CAMA has a very ineffective policy on sandbags. We have seen it through the years. They tell people to take them up, politics gets involved, and they put them back down, and then they issue more permits to put more sandbags down. We better just go ahead and do the best we can with the sandbags, because they're not gonna take them up. I mean, we can talk, it's not gonna do any good. Some people will take them up, but most people's not going to. And what's CAMA gonna do? Write them another letter. Copy the one they wrote 5 years ago.
They were ordered to take them out, and the General Assembly passed a bill to stop it,
That's exactly right. Politics gets involved and stops it.
and that may end up happening again.
I don't believe that we can effectively stop and start this for every area that has sandbags. I would just encourage anyone that has sandbags that if they want 100% benefit of beach nourishment in front of their property, and obviously their property is in jeopardy or they wouldn't have the sandbags, that they need to remove them as soon as possible, because with the dredging coming going south, where most of the sandbags are, it could very well not jeopardize the project, but certainly not give it the efficiency that the project has been projected to have in front of their property if they didn't have sandbags. And that being said, I don't know how to make it any clearer, but I really don't believe that we could skip. I just don't think that that's, I don't think that's effective either for the project. You've got, what, 20-some places that have sandbags or more. Anyway, I'm not sorry I asked the question. I don't like the answer, but it's just like beach nourishment. People knew it was coming long before April. And the people who have sandbags knew it was coming long before today. They need to remove them. It's that simple. And there are, through Dave Clark, a number of people available, Dave, am I correct, that will do it for them. Probably won't cost as much as the beach pushes that they've been paying for, but I would suggest they get them out. I'm a little tired of the resistance. I mean, this board's been on this project 8 years, and all of a sudden it's brand new to everybody.
Well, sandbags were always a temporary solution, and I think everybody signed that when they got their permit on them, and it's time to take them out. And I wish we would help encourage that by saying we're not going to. There's a whole stretch of sandbags that are exposed. We've levied violations on the Comfort Inn, and we should do what we can, whatever we can, to try and get those bags out. And I think it would help if we said, no, we're not going to put you're last in line for nourishment.
But you know, if you do that, Bob, and you have a break in the beach nourishment, it's not to our advantage. We at best put as much sand as we can in there.
But these folks, by their own actions, are making it so we can't put the engineered amount of sand.
But then we're going to pay for it. If we delay Great Lakes, we got to pay for that. Every day we delay them, we got to pay for it.
Who are we talking about here? We're talking about the Comfort Inn South?
Yeah,
I thought they were proponents of beach nourishment.
they are.
They want to have their cake and eat it too, just like everybody does, Doug. I mean,
well, I got to agree with Wayne though. You can't stop the dredge right there. You can, but you can't. I mean, I guess they put sand up to their sandbags. If they're not going to remove them, it's their loss, and then partially ours, of course, but it's their loss.
well, the whole project hangs together as an engineered project, and that weakens the project.
Agreed.
Honestly.
I would hate to penalize the people on either side though by putting a gap in there.
Right, me too.
I think that endangers people that are living by the rules, and I don't want to be in a situation of saying that you're not as valuable as somebody else.
Well, but maybe they would urge their neighbors to comply.
The other thing that we can do, none of us are engineers. We can give it to Great Lakes. We can give it to Tim Connor and ask his opinion of what it would do to the project if this were worked around to some point. But the but is, what if they still don't remove it come September? You just go back then and just kind of put some there?
I just think it's wrong to stop and start and put a break in. If you're gonna do it, let's do it. But if you start piecemealing it, you're determining a less valuable project.
Anything else on beach nourishment update or sandbags? Seeing none. Items referred to in presentations from the town attorney. Mr. Gallup, thank you for being here tonight.
Glad to be here, Mr. Mayor. Glad to be here. The rest of Board of Commissioners. I don't have any presentations, but I would request a brief closed session at the end of the meeting to discuss the Deal, Andy and Laura Deal litigation and the Sansoda and Hardesty litigation.
Yes, sir. Number I, items referred to in presentations from the town manager. Sir.
Start off with Brett Haven. The Mayor Pro Tem and I met last Tuesday. We went to Kinston to meet with the president of Brithaven, Mr. Randy Uzel, to discuss the proposal that he put together. Initially, the sale of the town sale in Brithaven to them for $2.2 million, and then $1.5 million in renovations. We went and talked to discuss options of a long-term lease. What Mr. Uzel has since sent back to us for your discussion and consideration tonight, it was given to you in your board packet. It's on the screen here, and it is initial lease for the town to lease the facility to Brithaven for an initial lease of 15 years. He proposed two 15-year options at their option, cost of $10 per year, including options. We made it clear that we don't want to see an interruption in service. I felt like we made it clear that we felt that the town wasn't looking for revenue as far as the sale of the facility goes. Our concern was more of putting whatever revenue we would generate from the sale into the structure to improve it, not only the facility itself, but whatever could be done to encourage a better level of service. We wanted to be able to offer that opportunity. What he states here is that they'd spend a minimum of 1.5 in renovations immediately after signing the lease documents and receiving the necessary approvals and plans. They say that they'll continue to maintain the facility in excellent working condition, that the town would secure a low interest rate, and he's holding off on making any notification to any of the patients and their families and employees pending our discussions here. I reviewed this with our attorneys as well as the attorney that we've retained that has the expertise in this issue, and talked about some of the things you need to discuss or consider. Not only whether or not the 15 years with the two 15-year options is necessary, but then also I think our biggest concern, the thing that we want to get most out of this, is to ensure that level of service, and also to ensure that in fact 1.5 million is the minimum that needs to be put into that facility. An assessment needs to be done. It could be 2 million as the minimum, and then also a long-term maintenance plan that specifically and very clearly and deliberately spells out what the expectation is for our given the building for $10 a year, what we expect as far as ongoing maintenance, and then we need to spell out the conditions of the CON, the minimum number of beds. We need to have a joint buyout, and then regular scheduled inspections. Those are just a few of the things if we decide to go this route. And then I've asked Mr. Uzel it's going to take some time to go through this, if he has similar leases that they operate under, to please provide us with that to kind of kick this thing off, for him to take the first crack at a draft. I think he's waiting to hear from your reaction to this proposal tonight.
In concept, Mayor Pro Tem, do you want to comment?
We need to wait until we get the offer from Brithaven, and then we got to make a counter offer, which we discussed at our last meeting, day before yesterday, I think, on inspections, on maintenance, and different things we need to be part of our agreement. But I think their offer is going to be a big factor in what we do. But I think it'll go probably 3 offers and counter offers before we settle it.
Mayor Pro Tem's talking about the Brithaven committee meeting, and we did get some good suggestions from the folks there. I guess I'm looking for the board's comments, and also, if it suits you, the agreement in concept to that long-term lease idea. This is really the first time we've had a little bit of give there from Brithaven on considering that long-term lease option.
Brithaven wants us to insure a low-interest loan?
Similar to the pass-through for the YMCA, to use for the improvements, and then they would pay that off. That would be basically what they'd be paying instead of rent, is paying off the improvements.
Chief, there's a lot involved with Brett Haven, and one thing is the certificate of need, which we say we own, they say they own. It's probably going to end up court if we don't get an agreement with them. If it ends up in court, chances are they're going to close Brett Haven. Dare County will be without a nursing home, and I think that's going a little too far to not have one.
Oh, no, we gotta take care of the people that are in there and
Yeah.
best interest. That's without a doubt. I again take the position, and I have taken the position in the past, and keep on taking the position until I'm proven wrong, that this whole issue has been generated by Brett Haven. It hasn't been generated by us. We need to do whatever it takes in order to but again, Brett Haven is not some nonprofit organization, or whatever you want to call it. But if that's what the board wants, we want to secure a low interest loan for them that goes on our debt service.
I think the idea is to use our assets, the money, that $2 million that we could get, use that to get a better facility. That's fine.
I have a question for the finance officer. Kim, I have great concerns about putting it on our debt. I believe as low as interest rates are, anybody can get a low interest loan, especially if it's collateralized, as number of beds and field would be. And my goal is to ensure a long-term facility in Nags Head. Tell me how that would, it shows on our balance sheet, though, does it not? The YMCA shows on our
It
balance
does, and it does, and it reduces our debt capacity as well. And I'm not, we've done this with the Y, I believe we did it one other time before. I'm not entirely sure that Brett Haven would qualify because they are not a 501(c). The YMCA was, and I believe that was what allowed us to enter that kind of arrangement. So it certainly would require additional research to see whether Brett Haven would even be eligible for that type of contractual relationship between us.
I agree in principle with a long-term lease. I think our goal is to provide stability, but I think that it's a symbiotic relationship. We want a long-term facility, they're willing to provide it, but with a symbiotic relationship, it's give and take, and I think if there's, the initial lease is great, but I think either side, if there's a problem, needs to have an out, not just one side. And that's the way I read it, unless I'm reading it wrong.
Well, I think I emailed you and Wayne both after you returned from your meeting because we got this information and I asked you if that's what you and Wayne had agreed to in concept. And I don't believe I've received an answer from either of you, so I'm still in the dark. Is that what you and Wayne kind of...
That's what we talked about.
Talked about.
I asked Mayor
well,
Pro Tem if that's his recollection as well, but that is what we talked about.
Well,
We can't bind the board. I mean, I know that. Believe me.
well, like I said, I never received a
I
comment.
apologize.
So, you know, this 15-year lease and then 2 more 15-year lease, what does that do with future board wanting to sell? I mean, we're going to sell this, but you're tied into this 15-year lease, which rolls over, whatever. I'm not into long-term leases after the original. I mean, I really am not. If Britt Haven had the people there that have made their home there, if they had them uppermost in their minds, I don't think we'd be at this position today. I really don't. The other thing, as far as the money's concerned, we have the money to loan them, the money for the improvements. And when you do that, then we have the ability to go in and check before we issue the money for the repairs. If they haven't done them, then of course you don't do it. It's kind of like building a house when the bank goes out. So as far as that goes, I don't want to put that on our debt service, and I don't know that a long-term, $1.5 million pay back over a certain period of time. But anyway, that's one way you could fund the improvements and maintain control over, do they really put it in there?
I'm not sure what the advantage is to using our cash to do that as opposed to sponsoring a loan. The loan would be to us, I believe, because we would own the facility. And then they would repay that loan through that contractual long-term lease.
But it's
I think you'd have some of the same control on, I agree, we've got to be more specific on what that $1.5 million of improvements are.
And that they're formed, that they're actually put in the facility and not put in wherever else it might be put in. But as far as tying up, what if they become less than the best service that we can find for our residents, and we're tied into these long-term options?
One of the suggestions that the committee had was to maintain a 4-star rating. The state has ratings of nursing homes, and that was one of their suggestions. Because that's the whole crux of it, is how do you measure it, and how do you keep the high quality, keep the quality there, and have some reassurance that it's there. On the flip side of that is if they commit to paying that $1.5 million, then they want some assurance that they will have that 15-year period to recoup that investment. I believe. I think it's an opportunity to have the place continue without a gap in service. I'm fearful that if we've given them our absolute best offer first, that may not be the best negotiating technique, but we really want them to stay, and so we're meeting them, I would say, 90% of the way there. I think we do have to, the devil will be in the details of if there is a lease, and we will have a chance to look at that.
Well, I did say something to Clef about we need some type of agreed upon inspection that we haven't had. And I think that's all to our good, the building's good, and the residents' good.
I think the idea that came out of the committee was more to have a nursing home commission that is made up of people, staff from Bridhaven and folks from the town, that jointly go in and inspect and agree on what needs to be done, lay out a maintenance schedule. I think the big flaw in the current arrangement that was made was there was no provision for continued maintenance or continued capital injections. And I think that you would probably be able to plan on additional capital being put into it on that 15-year schedule as well. But I'm asking more on agreement in the concept. I understand I hear some concern about some of the specifics on it. I think if we can wait and see what they send back to us and try and meet those plans.
Well, are they going to send something back to us after they hear that we are amenable to looking at a long-term lease? Is that what you're?
We've been urging them to look at a long-term lease. Really.
So whose shot is it at this lease right now?
They are going to send us back a lease because time is very important in this. They are, they're
obligated to that 9-day period.
We're up on a deadline, so I thought it best to ask them to present us with a lease that they might be able to come up with something quicker than.
Well, it's like Wayne said, we just need to wait for them. This is moot until they come back. And
I guess I'm asking for the board's comments on is a long-term lease an acceptable way to do this, or would you prefer to sell it outright? That's the other. I'm sure that other option is probably still on the table.
I'm not opposed to a long-term lease because we want to keep some continuity in the facility, but we also want to make sure we have some points in there about maintenance and so forth.
I think we've got to wait for the response And at the Bridhaven meeting 2 days ago, we come up with some pretty good ideas on inspections. One thing's the CON. In the agreement, we've got to end up with a CON. Otherwise, we don't have a nursing home. There's a number of things that we come up with, and I recommend we go forward with it and get their what they want, and then sit down and go over it and make them a counter offer.
Did I hear you correctly that in the lease it would say that the CON belongs to the building?
I think we should put that in the agreement, that in the end, with the CON comes back to us.
That would be a way to resolve it without going to court, if we had that written agreement on it. May also be a deal killer.
How can Bridhaven pass up $10 a year, a guaranteed loan of $1.5 million, and not provide a service that these people need? It's a no-brainer.
I would suggest that they get their own loan. I mean, a company like that is obviously making money.
Well, it's like Kim said, she doesn't know even if they're eligible to it, but either way, it's a no-brainer. It does prove to everybody out there that we are the ones, trying to get this thing done, and we've got to wait anyway, so we'll just wait and see what happens.
And I would submit that there probably is some loan money out there if it's a municipally owned facility
$1.5 million
that would be available.
The deal.
Anyway,
Money's
I
cheap.
am more than willing to bring it on.
Okay.
I'd like to
Me
see,
too.
yeah, so let's do it.
I think, yes, sir.
I'd just like to suggest that if I can contact Mr. Giselle and share with him this discussion and figure out if it's better for us. I mean, Robert Hobbs can, I think, get something together pretty quickly. I'd like to be able to have this on your first meeting in July. And if that means we need to come up with it first, I mean, obviously we'd like to get his first crack, but we don't want to wait too long.
You got great faith in thinking that attorney's gonna roll up something to you.
Why
No
should?
offense, Ben.
why
I'd rather
should
have
our
his attorneys be under the gun than our attorneys be under the gun.
Okay.
Sorry.
And it's July 6th anyway, his attorney should be able to come up by
They
then.
should be working on that lease right now, shouldn't they, Clint?
Well, October 1st is pretty, if we wait too long, we're going to get dangerously close to that October 1st deadline. And
I think we can come up with a accept or non-accept of their suggestions for lease at our July meeting.
Or make a counteroffer at that point in time.
I think you tell Mr. Uzel that we are willing to move forward. Please present their
okay.
thing to us.
That's what we told them. That's what the mayor told them.
Further questions, comments on Bridhaven?
If we hit that 1 October date, we can go on a monthly, and Bridhaven is serious, we can go on a monthly extension. Right, Mayor?
Yes, sir. I mean, I think if we are making progress in negotiations, I think they will see it's to their benefit to stay in there at, what is that, 90 cents a month or so?
If they see they're going to close, they have 90 days to notify the patients in the nursing home that they're closing the doors. And their lease is up 1 October, and if we see we're going beyond that, there shouldn't be a problem if they're serious.
Not with the town.
No.
I mean, I would give an extension. I think we offered them an extension for a year for $10. If to work this out. So I don't want to push them out. I just want to come up with something that doesn't. I'm not going to use that word, but that is best interest for the town and the better interest for the people that are already living there, and something that would be profitable for this company.
I think the point that we made that really sunk through was it basically reduced their cost structure almost in half, which has got to be a help.
Ooh, yes, it would be a big help.
Okay, thank you very much. We will communicate that. If we'll communicate that back to Mr. Rizal, we've got agreement in concept, and look for the details. Anything else from you, Mr. Ogden? Commissioner's agenda? Mr. Romano?
Not a thing.
Mr. Sabat?
Nothing.
Mr. Green?
Just to thank staff again for all the hard work. They've worked for months for this 50th anniversary. It was a great day yesterday. and I can't think of a better lightkeeper than Doris Garn. I saw a tax receipt from 1964 that staff gave me, where we paid $3.18 for our annual taxes in 1964. So, but staff did a great job, the volunteers did a great job, and thanks to everybody that attended yesterday.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
John Ratzenberger, good job. Real fine job.
It was a very nice day yesterday, and it's nice to see it continuing on through the week with the carnival. Encourage everybody to go out. Mayor's agenda, the only thing I've got would be Ms. Sharp's comments. Mr. Ogden, would you care to take a stab at that?
Be happy to discuss this. I just wonder if a better setting would be between myself, Ms. Sharp, and maybe the police chief outside of this setting. But I'd be happy to discuss.
I have a point of order or a point of legality maybe. Ask the attorney, since there are charges pending in a case against Ms. Sharp, how can we discuss it?
There are multiple reasons that we shouldn't discuss this issue
Right.
in open session at this point in time.
You can't discuss it until after her case has been disposed of.
From one side, it's potentially a personnel issue. From the other side, it's potentially a
Correct.
criminal issue, and neither one should be discussed by this board at this time. It would be my preference that you not.
Except in closed session. Is that what you said, Ben?
I believe we could go into closed session to discuss both matters if that was the board's desire. The board can consider criminal investigations in closed session, and the board can certainly consider personnel investigations in closed session. But it's up to the board if that, my desire for a closed session is not related to that this evening.
At the board's pleasure. We do have a request for.
I'm sorry.
We do have a request for a closed session for the Roxanne Soda piece and the
Any deal?
and any deal.
And that's it.
And I would suggest that we also cover this issue in closed session.
Strongly disagree.
What can we do?
You can't do anything
I
legally
think
until
that
after.
we could discuss what we could or could not do in closed session. I would like to go into closed session and add this to the agenda.
Is this not a matter for the district attorney? There's civil violations in the town go to the DA.
The criminal violations in the town are prosecuted by the district attorney.
Entertain a motion to go into closed session then. Will you give us the statute for the one that you requested?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. It would be 143-318.11A3 to discuss matters with the attorney employed by the town in a manner preserving the attorney-client privilege related to the two Roxanne Soda and Town of Nags Head matters, and the two Sam Hardesty and Town of Nags Head matters, and the Andy and Laura deal in Town of Nags Head matters.
I'm going to make that as a motion. That does leave out this personnel or legal discussion.
I'll second your motion.
Further discussion?
Yes, is there any particular reason why we cannot include what I have asked to be in closed session?
Because it is a pending legal matter.
I heard the attorney say that we could bring this up in closed session. Now, am I hearing wrong, Ben?
I kind of heard him say that he'd prefer not to, but
You know, it doesn't really matter to me what he prefers. It's what is the letter of the law, Mayor.
and we'll have the vote, and you're welcome to try and amend the motion. Yeah, I don't. Excuse
Well,
me. Sorry.
I'm asking Ben, is it legal to go into closed session for the discussion that Ms. Sharp brought up?
There are multiple different possible ways to discuss that in closed session, depending on what the discussion is about. You could ask for advice from me under the attorney-client privilege about how to address Ms. Sharp's concerns. You could also consider criminal investigations information from the police department under a different provision. Or you could also consider complaints against personnel under a different provision. So there are multiple different provisions that could apply depending on what you wanted to consider.
I would like for you to be able to give this citizen of our town a response in some manner that would be legal.
We're discussing the motion though. Did you want to amend the motion?
I would like to amend the motion.
Okay. To discuss,
Just the first point that he brought out
seek advice from council.
as to how to respond to
On the privilege.
Mrs. Sharp.
Second. Oh, that doesn't require a second, that's an amendment. Oh, yeah, it does, right, second.
It's, yeah. Did you second that, Doug, or did?
I did not.
Okay. I'm acceptable with that, and the seconder is acceptable with that, so that's the amended motion that we'll be voting on.
And
All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign.
No.
Motion passes 4-1. And we're going to remove to,
Excuse me.
yes, ma'am?
You have to have two votes. One was on the amended motion as amended. If that's not correct, am I wrong?
You're right. And
Parliamentary?
And one is to go in closed session.
Typically, that's done by consensus, but if it's not consensus, then I believe you'd want to have a motion on the amendment unless someone wanted to withdraw their motion in the House.
My understanding was, since I made that motion, I accepted the amendment as a friendly amendment, and that was the motion that we voted on.
And I believe you
I
can.
thought, I'm sorry, I thought I asked you if you were the seconder on that one, and I apologize.
And I believe you can do that if there's consensus, but if there's not consensus, I believe you would have to have a vote on the amendment.
Then we'll have a vote on the original motion, which did not include seeking that advice. Is that, no?
We have a motion on the amended motion first. Sorry.
It's kind of a box building concept where the first motion that you would consider is whether or not you would amend the motion. So that's
Okay.
what's,
And the vote's already been taken.
Gotcha, sorry.
I think we should retake that under the impression that I'm not sure that everyone understood that was what the vote was.
Okay, so this vote is on the motion to amend the motion to include Commissioner Sadler's addition.
Yes.
Everybody clear?
What did we just vote on?
That's
We
what
just
we
voted
just
on that.
voted on, but we're
Yeah.
making sure that everybody's clear on it, because
Yeah.
I didn't do it very well, let me put it that way. So this is a vote to amend the motion. All those in favor of the motion to amend the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign.
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1. The motion, then we take up the amended motion. All those in favor of the amended motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously. And we're going to retreat to closed session. We're going to come back into open session. I'll ask the attorney to report out actions from our closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The attorney, myself, obtained direction on litigation with the Laura and David Deal, as well as direction on litigation with Sam Hardesty and between Sam Hardesty and the town, and direction on litigation with Roxanne Soda and his fellow plaintiffs in the town. We also were directed to provide Ms. Sharp a letter with the town's position on her complaints.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Any further business to come before us this evening? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously.